All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Taylor Tuesday. I'm Dr. Andrew Schneider. I practice in Houston, Texas, and I've been a member of Taylor Medical since the beginning of Taylor Medical, one of the originals. And with me today is Dr. Andy Baccia.
Hey, everybody. How's it going? I'm Andy Baccia from Columbus, Ohio, and I've also been a member of Taylor Medical from its inception, and I'm also happy to serve on their board.
And tonight we have the president of THOTICS, Michael Friedman, joining us. If you're not familiar, THOTICS is a company that delivers superior over-the-counter orthotics that's beneficial to both physicians and patients. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and the company?
Sure. I'm still a licensed ped orthotist. I do not practice anymore. I founded THOTICS in 2008 with the goal of providing the best quality and best value over-the-counter orthotics to the pediatric profession. And we were actually one of the 6 founding vendors of Taylor in 2016.
That's right. It's been that long. Crazy.
It has. It's been 6 whole years.
Wow. So you all should know that replays of all these webinars, these Taylor Tuesday webinars, are located at www.taylormedical.com, and you can access it by clicking where it says webinars. It's the upper right-hand corner. Check out the vast library of Taylor Tuesday content. And as you know, we host our bi-monthly series on the first and third Tuesday of every month, and we hope you join us live.
And if you all are not familiar with Taylor Medical, or if this is the first time you're joining us on a Taylor Tuesday, I'm just going to take a couple of minutes to explain what Taylor Medical is and how it can help your practice, just like it has helped mine and Andrew's and all the others. Taylor Medical is a GPO, or a group purchasing organization. And what they do is leverage the buying power of their members to negotiate discounts with key vendors and in the pediatric industry. And that saves you money on the products, supplies, capital equipment, and so on that you are already ordering for your practice. And not only is the membership free, yes, I said free, you also receive a 1% annual rebate on all qualifying purchases. So go ahead and sign up for a free, no obligation cost analysis. All you have to do is email an Excel spreadsheet with 3 months of your most recent ordering history. And the email address to send that to is admin@taylormedical.com. admin@taylormedical.com. Just go ahead and send an Excel spreadsheet with 3 months of your most recent ordering history, and that'll get you started. And it's absolutely no cost to get that done. It's also no cost to join. So I highly encourage you to check it out. And I believe we are ready to move on.
All right, Mike, it's all yours.
Thank you. Tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about how to increase patient outcomes using over-the-counter orthotics, how prefab orthotics or OTCs can help maximize profits in your practice. And after each group or set of type of orthotic, just a quick synopsis as to, do I believe as a ped orthotist, these are going to be the new norm post-COVID? And some are and some won't be. When we're talking about over-the-counter orthotics, 3 basic types. Your adult orthotics, THOTICS happens to have a full line. I'm going to go over some tips on how to use them in the practice. We also have a pediatric line. We'll go over those. We also have multiple options. We don't believe that a single pediatric orthotic will work for every pediatric patient you've got. And then we're going to talk a little bit about our dress orthotic line, and sometimes bigger is better. Let's talk a little bit about the background. Where can patients get prefab orthotics? And the reality is almost anywhere these days. Retail stores, what I mean by retail, I don't mean your hospital's pharmacy. What I'm really referring to is a shoe store. When we talk about big box, Those are stores that would be in malls, for example, or the running stores. Fleet Feet, for example, is one in the metropolitan New York area. They have any number of retail brands. They are available in pharmacies. Sometimes you can get decent over-the-counter orthotics in a pharmacy. Sometimes luck of the draw. DMEs or medical supply stores, they might actually have some decent orthotics, at least as far as over-the-counter. And the last one, which I did not used to put on this slide, online, there are probably 1,000 more types of over-the-counter orthotics than there were as recently as 5 years ago. And I would say that 99% of them are knockoffs of 3 or 4 brands. So what really happens when patients get over-the-counter orthotics from, in a retail setting? The most common error or outcome is they actually buy the wrong type of orthotic. Not to say that they should have gotten a different brand at that retail store, but when they're at these stores, whoever is helping them, if someone is, has no knowledge of them as a patient, of their indications, like you guys would as a medical professional, as their podiatrist. So a lot of times you're going to get the wrong type of orthotic. You may get the wrong fit. Somebody literally says, hey, the green one looks good. Well, that doesn't mean anything. Almost every single time, if not every single time, they buy inferior products. And the reality is they're going to have negative outcomes. And more often than not, when they're in your practice, they've tried something retail already, because everybody's under the assumption, all patients are under the assumption that they can self-diagnose and that they can fix themselves. And while that may be commendable, it's usually not accurate. So when we talk about prefabricated orthotics, what's changed during COVID, right? Because the foot didn't change. The bones in the foot, the structures are all identical. The soft tissue is identical. So what's with this huge increase in over-the-counter orthotics? Well, before we get into the exact reasons, think of it this way. Everybody was home. They had a lot of money to spend. They just bought a new Peloton. And, hey, their feet are aching. So they're going to buy something. And if they couldn't get to their podiatrist, then what do? Because really, medical grade over-the-counter orthotics, if you couldn't get to your physician, they started to disappear. At least patients weren't getting new ones. They weren't getting diagnosed as frequently for new ones. And if you're at home and you're used to shopping on Amazon already, what can it hurt to order a couple pairs, see if they work? And so we just saw this incredible juxtaposition where, due to supply chain issues, medical grade orthotics increased in price, oftentimes decreased in quality because you weren't getting the same exact materials you did before. There were supply chain issues with some of these better quality plastics. So it's a lot easier for a patient to just go online, they've self-diagnosed, and purchase a pair. What else changed? DPM-based stores. What I mean by that is online stores that they may have a fancy name, but in fact, they are physician-based stores. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think it's a great idea, especially if where I am in Connecticut or up in Vermont and you can't get your physician because there's 3 feet of snow. If he or she has an online store, you can reorder Ready Thotics or whatever brand they get for you, and you could just ship them to their house. Now, I referred to this earlier, literally hundreds of new non-medical grade prefabs appear, and we'll go over a little bit about what non-medical grade is. Essentially, polypropylene, polyurethane are the 2 standards for custom orthotics in the podiatric / orthopedic fields. We use them in our over-the-counter orthotics. Frankly, they're better materials. They hold up better. They treat indications or address them better. They're more rigid, they last longer, they can tolerate more stress, they can tolerate larger patients. And so that's why we use them. And they're more expensive products, so typically you don't see them in the retail type brands. So how are we going to increase patient outcomes with prefabs? We talked about it a little, but what I want to impress upon you is I don't want to see anybody changing protocols because they believe they only have access to a certain brand or something. There's always a way to figure out what's better for your patient. That can be more than one different arch height. It could be the rigidity, meaning you may want a flexible orthotic for some, or a rigid as a brick orthotic for others. You might be a practitioner that you were taught and you believe that deep rehel cups are the way to go. That's fine. Others may think otherwise, but take those into consideration before just buying the first brand you see. And another question, when we're talking about patient outcomes, is do we want to take the time to modify these, whether it be heat molding, adding accommodations? It could be a met pad, a met bar, offloading a lesion, whatever the case may be. Do you want to, it increases the patient outcome. It also takes time. And, why are we using these for this particular patient? Is it a temporary until they get a custom orthotic, and we don't want them to leave empty-handed, and then maybe they go retail, they buy something that works a little bit for them, and then they don't come back? That's the worst thing that can happen. Is it a permanent, meaning for whatever reason, patient says, look, I'm not buying custom orthotics. I know I'm not covered, but I'm just not getting them. Which ties into financial concerns, right? Not everybody who isn't covered can afford $400 or $500 whatever you charge for customs. So rather than sending them away, let's find a solution in the practice that's pretty close, and keeps them as part of the practice, rather than saying, I have nothing for you, go buy something and see if it works, right? That's not a great solution. It's not great practice management. And then you have to think of what indication are we addressing, meaning you can try to find a single orthotic for every indication. It's very difficult to find one that actually works that way. So it's better if you have multiple ones to choose from, and maybe you stock one or two in the office, and then you can have one or two dropship for a particular patient. I'm going to go ahead and talk about our posted series. We really have three basic types: the Comfort Posted, the RT Pro, which also is heat moldable, and our Balance, which is also moldable. Two of them have extrinsic posts, one is intrinsic. So I would rather, if we're doing a post, do a custom orthotic, truth be told. However, that's not always an option. So that being said, what are we trying to treat when we've got an extrinsic or intrinsic rear foot post? Obviously, we're treating pronation. Now, comparing them to retail purchased orthotics, it probably shouldn't be there, because frankly, I have yet to see an extrinsic post on a retail product, but these are going to have better materials. You should be dispensing medical grade OTC orthotics because you're going to get superior outcomes. I actually think these might be the new norm, only because I do believe less and less folks are going to be purchasing custom orthotics. However, they will need posted orthotics. And in our case, we choose from. Some of our competitors produce them as well. If you like rear foot posts, or you think they're necessary for a certain percent of your patient population, I think you can get by with them going through two pair a year or so, if they really can't or won't purchase a custom pair that has an extrinsic or intrinsic post. Comfort orthotics are what we call our comfort line, which are more middle of the road orthotics. We have a full length, our Comfort Plus, which is the exact same device with a built-in met pad. Comfort 3/4, which is the exact same thing as the full length, but it is literally 3/4 and then skived on the bottom, so there's no lip. And then we have that posted product we just spoke about. Again, this is used usually pronation and pes planus. Compared to retail products, again, you usually don't see these types of options in retail. So you're going to have your polypropylene, usually that's what we use. You're usually not going to see that in the retail brands. You're going to have better patient outcomes. I do think for generic plantar fasciitis, perhaps metatarsalgia, this is going to be the new norm. Not that customs aren't as good, if not better, they are. I just think there are so many non-medical brands available that are quote unquote middle of the road generic orthotics that they're going to have so many to pick from. I think they're going to gravitate towards these for the more moderate indications. Now, this one's interesting. When we need accommodating orthotics, whether they are semi-flexible with a lot of cushioning like our Freedom is, for someone who has rheumatoid arthritis or perhaps is actually a diabetic but doesn't qualify for the shoe bill, or you're just looking to offload an IPK. We've got the Freedom orthotic is kind of unique in that they don't make retail ones like that. It actually does have a plastic shell. It's just a little more flexible. And then we have its cousin, the Flex orthotic, which has moderate cushioning. It comes with a pair of Met pads. So if you like Met pads, they're in the box. You're not paying extra for them. They're already there. That one's nice. It's a little lower profile. Fits a little better. Compared to retail ones, very different materials. Depends on the severity of the pes planus. You might want a slightly more rigid plastic shell. So there might be other options that are medical grade available, but they're always going to be better than your generic retail brand, only because of the materials, right? The shape is not really of importance here. We're not trying to be overly aggressive. What we're trying to do is accommodate patients that either don't know they're in trouble or might be in trouble, perhaps with blisters or lesions forming. I do think these type of orthotics can be the new norm for the simple reason that if we're looking at the custom alternative to this, those materials have gotten so expensive. Like those of you who do custom orthotics realize the prices are just going through the roof, and they're going to be that way for quite some time. And so I just think from a cost basis, if a patient can go through 2 of these a year, it'll be a lot easier for them to come in and grab a couple of these rather than paying even more for a pair of the materials that are involved in these orthotics. Okay, staying with aggressive orthotics, but trying to treat pes cavis. This is a tricky one because I really would rather these patients got custom orthotics. We're going to need a very full arch. Typically, if it's a tripod, we like to have a cutout in the heel because you really have those 3 points of pressure, one being the heel. Versus retail purchased orthotics, I haven't really seen a non-medical grade option for this type of foot yet because you need the higher medial flange. There are other considerations. You need to have different materials. We use polyurethane in this one because in folks that have a moderate tripod, they put so much pressure under the metatarsals, they really chew up orthotics, custom or prefabricated. And so in their case, it may just be easier to go through a pair of these every 5-6 months than redoing customs over and over and over again. And certainly the outcomes are going to be far superior versus, a non-medical grade. As far as I did the new norm, hard to say. I still think some of these folks really are better off in custom orthotics. However, if it's not financially an option, you can go with something like our Control. I haven't seen too many competitors like this, but they may, I'm sure they're out there somewhere. When we talk about really rigid orthotics, I actually wear these, so it brings a smile to my face. I do like rigid orthotics, whether they are Black Max or our Red Ultra. They both have deep heel cups, but the black one, really, the Max is a super deep heel cup. It's got okay cushioning, but wow, it gives so much rear foot control. The Ultra, which is super rigid, it really is. We joke it's a red brick. We tell patients, or I used to tell patients when I was in the rough stages of developing this, you're not going to break it in, but it'll break you in. It's very thin. Doesn't have a super deep heel cup, but I love it, or I love them because they are medical grade. They're fantastic for most pes planus. Now, if someone's subluxing, they really should get a custom orthotic. But usually in a medical grade orthotic, support layers are made from better materials, which typically leads to those improved outcomes with the medical grade orthotics. They might be the new norm. I don't see too many really, really rigid over-the-counter orthotics. And frankly, that's because most stores don't want to have to take the time to describe why it's so rigid, right? They want soft and cushy. They don't want rigid orthotics. Patients want a Dr. Scholl's type, if not name brand Dr. Scholl's. They want squishy, they want foam. They don't want something that's rigid under their foot, right? They want that feeling, like they're sinking into a pillow. They don't want to feel support. And that's why I'm not sure if these are going to become the new norm. I hope they do. I'm not sure if they will. When we talk about, how do we get patients to actually notice these, right? We can keep them in a drawer, right? Or in a closet for storage, which makes sense. But we do have, and some other companies have, different size displays so patients can at least start to educate themselves. It increases patient interest, and in general, a patient that's interested tends to accept these more readily. Whether it's a little, countertop display that holds, let's call it a dozen pair or so, or a full-size rack that holds 100 pairs. Either way, you're bringing attention to something that isn't available in a store for them. I want to mention dress shoes real quick. We don't believe in one dress shoe device for the entire practice. That's not to say you have to stock all three, but there are different types of dress shoes. So whether it's the 3/4 device, that's for ballerina flats or just women's flats, the sulcus length, which is really for high heels, or the full length, which is for men's dress shoes when there's nothing removable. Generally, you're just looking to treat some tired feet, give some comfort. If there's metatarsalgia, you can address that. These are actually fairly rigid, but they're very thin. They don't have much of a heel cup. Versus retail orthotics are very different, right? It's hard to find dress shoe orthotics that actually have polypropylene in them, let alone in a retail setting. So the support layers are generally made from superior materials. And again, you're going to have more favorable outcomes with the prefab medical grade orthotics versus whatever you're finding on Amazon. There's a litany of really cheap dress shoe orthotics on Amazon, most of which are really just glorified pads. I do think products like this, whether it's ours, if someone else wants to do something this functional for, an executive or dress type of shoe, I do think they're going to become the new norm. Just because patients are going to not want to spend the money on custom orthotics for their dress shoes. Sneakers, different story. You can always get patients to buy them for sneakers. Dress shoes are hard, especially if they want a pair that goes from dress shoe to dress shoe. Because as you know, a custom orthotic that fits one dress shoe may not fit another. And that's why I do think these have a real place in the future. Another thing that has a real place in the future are pediatric over-the-counter orthotics. Now, for years, there typically was one product for an entire practice of children. And it was a rock hard miniature UCBL, or University of Cal Berkeley lab heel. Now that things have changed, we do have two versions of that. They are padded though, so they're a little more comfy. They're not quite as bulky as they used to be. And then we have two full-length versions. One which is really more for cleats and a rear foot apophysitis. Another full-length version, a little more flexible, especially in the flanges. So if you have a lot of adipose tissue, it fits better. That's full-length, called the Champ. Just such better materials that if you can even find retail. I think this is the one where I'm going to sort of jump ahead and say these are the new norm, only because I think parents' awareness of their children's foot health is increasing. And I know that the materials that are available in medical grade OTCs versus if you can find a non-medical grade are just so superior in the ones that you guys have access to. You should be providing something like this. Parents, as you know, they will very often say, I can do without, but I want to have a pair of those for my kid. And it's also a great idea for the kids' OTCs because parents can wrap their heads around, what if we need 2 pairs, 3 pairs in a year? They have massive growth spurts, right? For $40, $50, okay, they grow out of them, we'll get another pair. It's not so easy to do that with a custom orthotic. So I do think these, at least in podiatry, are going to become a new norm. Parents are very particular with their kids. I know I am. And so they don't understand that it is possible to cast a patient for custom orthotics, yet they don't fit perfectly. They don't understand this. And some can get agitated and bothered by it. Whereas with an over-the-counter orthotic, we've found when their expectations are a little lower, they don't complain as much. And for $40 or $50, I've always explained to them there's a fudge factor. So if you want to spend $500, we can get it perfect. And typically the answer is, you know what, Mr. Friedman, for 90% discount, we'll make do. And now, I don't want them making do if they're not working, but these are going to work. They're the exact same designs that any lab would make for you for custom orthotics. I'm going to talk briefly about in-office modifications and are they the new norm? We're talking about med pads. The old way was you used barge cement and you cut them yourself, and it was very labor sensitive. We have peel and stick ones. We use rug tack, so they really do stick. We have peel and stick rear foot posts. We've even got stability plates for functional hallux and limitus. Now, one indication, you name it, you can find a pad for it. I don't know that these are going to become the norm. In fact, I don't think they will, because you could pick one of 24 that we manufacture. There are other brands that have other styles. So if you're already doing in-office mods, that's great. You can continue to do so. But if you haven't started, I can't think of a good excuse as to why you would, when the OTC orthotics or the prefabricated ones have come so far, especially in the last 5-10 years. I don't think that in-office modifications are going to become the new norm. I could be wrong. You guys might prove me wrong, but I think that's the way it's going to go. When you're dispensing them, over-the-counter orthotics, that is, again, we spoke about this earlier, it really does protect patients from purchasing inferior products. And the nice thing is, the bottom line is, you are often tripling or quadrupling your cost. So think of it as a stock. If you could guarantee triple the return or more every time, that's a pretty good investment. And the nice thing is it keeps them as part of your practice. Your patient retention increases. You don't want to send them out to buy your Dr. Scholl's and then somehow misguidingly they believe it works, and there's a reason for them not to come back. And you should be offering products that aren't in those brick and mortar stores, because once it's in a store, in their minds, it's on the level of a Dr. Scholl's. And we happen to offer risk-free products. What I mean is, anything you purchase, if after 6 months, let's say, you realize they're not moving, and another one is, we'll swap them out at no cost. And a tip: put the display in a prominent area to increase profits. Now, goes without saying, make it your own program. Choose which orthotics work best for your practice protocols. This goes back to what we talked about earlier. Don't get pigeonholed and do a single exact orthotic for everything. I mean, if that works for you, great. It probably is not going to work for a lot of your patients. Certainly, you can mix and match orthotics based on your patient's needs. We mentioned swap outs. If you realize that the rigid ones just aren't moving as well, and the ones for metatarsalgia or the ones for pes planus are flying off the shelves, you can swap those out. It's not a big deal. If you want to save space, or you just don't want to have that retail look, ours are available in plain plastic bags. Same exact products. They look a little more boring, maybe even a little more medical, if you want to call it that. We don't have minimum orders. If you're so inclined, you could even design your own OTC orthotic. We can mix and match materials and top covers and colors and really make it your brand. Now, there are minimums involved in that, but we do it all the time. A tip I would give that better be the new norm is, if you're ordering a single pair for a patient, add that freight. I don't care what company it is, add that freight, pass it on to the patient. There's no reason you should eat that. Right nowadays with UPS, a single pair seems to be $10. Pass it on, right? And let them know, hey, we're ordering this for you. And just if you normally charge $50, charge them $60. There's no reason you should eat that $10. You're doing them a service. We do a pretty robust sample program at Ready Orthotics. Try a pair on us really means it's on us. They're free. We do ask that if your rep says, hey, did you like them, or did the patient like them, have somebody answer them. It doesn't have to be you, but email, text, phone call. You can yell if you're down the street. Let us know how they worked. If you're not sure what you want to do, get a sample ring. Whether it's grown-up or kids, they're free. Give you 10 or 11 ideas and pick one or two that work for your practice. And again, free means free. Samples are samples. There's the contact information on the screen. And I'm done right now, but join Taylor next Tuesday for another one of these shindigs.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? If you do, type them into the chat window.
All right, thanks, Mike. We've had some questions come in. I'm going to throw out at you.
Okay.
First is, how much do the Ready THOTICS cost, and how much should the practice charge for them?
All right. We have tiered pricing. So if you're not Taylor, for example, Taylor gets, with the exception of the U.S. government, Taylor has the best pricing. So I'm only going to quote Taylor pricing here. You're paying literally just over $12, if you're Taylor. Average practitioner is going to pay more, anywhere from $13.50 to $18. So there are some real benefits to being part of Taylor. So are my colleagues. There you go. So I don't know if this person's asking. I know Dr. Giancova, so I don't know if he's asking for Taylor, which I just gave you the price, or non-Taylor, which is obviously higher.
And how long do these usually last?
For your average patient, average activity, roughly a half year, although it's not uncommon for some smaller female patients to get a year or more out of them. We have men that get a year or so out of them. The only caveat is, we do recommend, if you have patients that are very active runners, that they change these when they change their running shoes, so roughly 400 to 500 miles. Now, I know that's not most of your patients, but if you have active patients, that's sound advice. so that they function optimally at all times.
Great. And next question. Do you have private labeling?
We do. It can be as simple as us putting your logo on a pair of orthotics and really making it look like your brand itself. Or if you were a little more ambitious and you actually wanted to mix and match our orthotics, we do have practices that will take the top cover from one and put it on another one's shell and then change the color. And then it really is their own brand. So we do that. There are minimums involved, but we certainly offer that.
Thanks. And last question I have is from myself. Are you guys having any supply chain issues? How's
No, we've
going?
Look, I was very, very fortunate. We work with a number of factories overseas, and they gave me a heads up last year. And they said, you need to order at least double what you think you're going to need. So we did, and it was painful, but we never ran out, and we still haven't. The only caveat is sometimes we might run out of the ones that are in the plain plastic bags, so you'd have to get them in our regular box. But other than that, we really haven't had any issues. We're also fortunate, and I don't know how much your members care to know this. The supply chain issues are much more exaggerated on the West Coast. We happen to be on the East Coast. So we're fortunate in that those delays that they talk about and show on TV, they really don't appear on the East Coast, not nearly as much.
Good to know.
There's some more. Okay, so I see it. Do you guys want to take these questions?
Yeah. What first one I see here is, what is the email to request samples?
So customer support at, and then our company, redi-thotics.com. So customer support at ready-thotics.com. And just let them know you were here at the webinar, you'd like a couple of free pair, and they'll hook you up.
I'm going to go ahead and also type it in here so all the attendees have it. Customer support at redi-thotics.com.
Correct.
Another question came through. Is there a way to see the products in person?
There are a couple of ways. One, we can certainly send sample rings or a couple of pairs. The other, which probably is more beneficial, is we do have 14 sales representatives throughout the United States. So certainly they could come in and do a lunch, or if you prefer to just squeeze them in between patients, they can do that as well. Just contact us and let us know you'd like someone to come see you. Under the assumption someone is in your neighborhood, we'll set that up.
Excellent.
All right.
Well, I think that's all we have coming in. Do you see any more, Andrew?
Nope. That's all I see. So thanks, everyone, for joining us for this Taylor Tuesday. Mike, thanks so much for a great presentation and great information. And join us next Taylor Tuesday, which is the first Tuesday in April. And that's going to be presented by Ascend Pharmacy, which is one of our newest partners at Taylor Medical. And so come on in a couple of weeks, and we'll see you there for that great presentation on another Taylor Tuesday.
Can I just interrupt you, Andrew, for a second? There was a question that had come in that I think Mike may have forgotten to answer. When I asked how much the practice should charge for the orthotics.
Oh, that's a great question. We recommend a minimum 49 per pair. The reality is it's really between you and your patient, but we do recommend at least 49. Again, that goes kind of hand in hand with your tripling, quadrupling your investment. If you want to go less, or you feel you're practicing in a lower income area and maybe you have to go 35 or 40, it's still good for your patients and still good for the practice. I just think that sometimes doctors are, shortchanging themselves because they are offering something that isn't available in a store.
Okay. Now we have all the questions answered.
Now we got it done.
Thanks again. And as Dr. Andrew Snyder said, April 5th, the first Tuesday, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern. And I believe Dr. Snyder, Ascend Pharmacy is one of our newer vendors to the Taylor Medical family. Is that correct?
I think they're brand new.
All right, great. Well, we'll be looking forward to hearing from them. Thanks, Mike. And
No problem. My pleasure. Take care.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Have a good night, everyone.
Thanks.